економічної дискусії, як забезпечити зростання. І я
National professional discussion, how to provide for growth. Oleksandr, Karelin, first Vice President of the Taxpayers Association of Ukraine. Good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen. I'm first Vice President of Taxpayers Association, Karelin. I would like to congratulate you on the Concordance Day and Remembrance Day, but the holidays usually expire too soon, and that means that starting from Monday, all the drawbacks and pitfalls in our social, economic, and political life will definitely come back in their full swing. Ukraine is in constant search of the economic model, the best ways to develop and reform our economy. And that's exactly why in these festive days, I would like to announce proudly the 8th Free Market Roadshow. And this is the habitual event. For the fourth time, as partners, we're involved in organization of this event in Ukraine. The leading institution in charge of this is Austrian Economic Center, in cooperation with more than 60 leading research facilities, universities, think tanks in Europe, the US, on the American continents, and in the US in particular. There are many partners. On the 12th of April, they started this event, this undertaking, the roadshow, calling in some 30 ports from Scandinavia, Nordic countries to Turkey, Spain, and Ukraine is included. And this is concluded on the 14th of May in Turkey. And then after Ukraine it will be Georgia, and then the last call will be in Turkey. This year, the rule, we take some thematic subjects for our discussions, more embraceable, possible, and possible in our circumstances and our environment this year. This is how to provide for growth. This conference is taking place, I have to mention here, on the 12th of April. And we will do that for the second time in the ICC of Ukraine, International or Ukrainian Institution for Trade and Commerce, ITC, to discuss the pathway for economic reforms and possible modes and modalities of reforms. It will be of great interest, not just for the experts, but all the people who would like to know what the best avenue of approach for Ukraine should be. And many people, our officials, our opinion makers are traveling the world and collecting this kind of information. Here the information is concentrated. It's the expert knowledge, the expertise, and there are many experts in this field that are presented at our events, and we'll have some members of the diplomatic corps, academics, journalists, opinion makers, public activists, and civil activists, and we have senior officials. Of course, this event will take place on the 12th of May, I suppose. And we will start our press conference at 11, and so with the main participants we can discuss it, have a discourse, converse with them, and on the conclusion, when and if the journalists are interested, we can arrange some press spot. I suppose the beginning will be at noon with the president of the association, Vasil Matichik, Barbara Kolm, executive director of this event and director of the Austrian Economic Center. In addition to that, we also have, because this event is related to Austria somehow, we'll have Siegfried Weilich, the Commissar Attaché of the Austrian Embassy in Ukraine. There will be two panels, and then will be continued. The first call is called Reforms at War, at the time of war, the most topical event indeed, and the thing is very proper. The development of reforms, the progress of reforms, the performance of reforms, and what we should expect, and how this is to be developed with our Western partners, because that experience of 2005 still have when Ukraine was a household name, but happened what happened, as our first president, Mr. Kravchuk, would say. So what is the recipe against fall, against a decline for growth, and what should we expect from decentralization that we have discussed at such length for a year or even more? Should we raise tariffs and decrease subsidies, streamline the taxes, and so on and so forth? That's the topic of the panel. And we plan, we know who the moderator is going to be for the panel. It's Yaroslav Zhelilo, advisor to the president of our Taxpayers Association, leading researcher for the Institute of Economics and Forecast of the National Academy of Science of Ukraine. And in addition to that, till recently he was one of the leaders of the leading experts of the Institute of Strategic Studies. Very interesting contributors to the panel, and available for anybody who cares to attend. Professor of Economy, Emeritus from Illinois, Dayton McCloskey, and John Fant, observer of the Wall Street Journal from the United States, and at each event they participate, and there are many articles about Ukraine that you can read there. Michael Walkner, Fraser Institute and Foundation, leading researcher of this institute, and the well-known names Viktor Holostyuk, the new face in the parliament, head of the parliamentary committee on industrial policy and entrepreneurship, business development, and MP, of course, and he's a member of our board. And Ksenia Lapina, until recently she was also an MP and head of the State Regulatory Service as of today. So many people attending the same venue. The second panel is not of less interest for the experts and people interested in taxation, tax policy, and investment environment. This is tax liberalization under the circumstances of fiscal limitations or constraints. These are interesting, exciting, but quite hazardous times, and the expenses are being cut, the budgetary expenses, but it is very difficult to considerably cut them, because Ukraine is the leader in funding of the military sphere by 20%. We increased the budget in that sphere alone. And this is about the budgetary funds. In addition to that, we have to improve the budgeting process and the budgeting results, increasing the revenues and the proverbial deliverables of the Parliament on the 28th of December, the notorious development that testifies to the fact that we are not feeling any better as taxpayers. Among the moderators of this event, we'll have expert Ilya Neschadovsky, reanimation package of reform, the tax reform group. He will be the moderator. Among the panelists, very well-known names: Olena Makieva, Deputy Minister of Finance of Ukraine. Perhaps one of the most important presentations we wanted to have on Syria, and because of the well-known events, it is not sure whether he will be able to attend. There are too many obstacles to that. John Cheesholm, General Director of the Institute of Economic Studies, Oleksandr Shlepak, till recently Minister of Economics, and his CV is quite rich on detail, and he is also one of our board members. So this is the person. He is, of course, Prince Michael von Liechtenstein, Geopolitical Information Service of Liechtenstein. At our last event, one of the Gabsbergs was last time with us. Now we have Prince attending and participating, Baba Kohm, Director of the Austrian Economic Center, Adam Martin, Senior Lecturer for Free Market Institute, US, and we will have a great number of people registered at our site as prospects for participation. Let's hope that this event will invoke a very important discussion, because it's looking from the outside. Outsiders are quite interested, and the insiders can learn a lot, and this is of much interest to those people who study this subject as academics and researchers. So I would like to call upon all of you, if you do care about the economic development of Ukraine, the growth, and those people who would like to hear about most important things that we should expect in the nearest future, already unfolding in some cases, because by and large this tax paying and governmental policy in that area should be at least transparent and simple, and the partnership relations are not excluded, because unfortunately our citizens are not used to this situation when it's their right or maybe their duty to control the public expenditures. So I would like to invite you all to attend the event. Are there any questions? I have a set of questions. First of all, you announced this event. Quite fundamental it is, but at the end of last month there were a couple and quite substantial events, essential events, on how that the Ukraine had to develop the Hooks Ukraine, and the Ukraine supports the conference supported by diplomatic corps after the summit. So what will constitute the substantial difference of your event? And what about growth? When it comes to growth, nothing is excessive and nothing is unnecessary. It's never enough. That's one thing. And this event is a traditional one. Just imagine people travel 30 countries of Europe, and they listen to opinions of the local leaders, officials, think tanks, and so on and so forth. The national expertise is then added to the general body of knowledge. Some recommendations are produced and come back to our country as recommendations of the institutions involved in the reforms and providing for such reforms in Ukraine. So this is the fourth event in a row, and for some it's a regular event, and the experience, the practice that they sum up the situation in the east of Ukraine and the east of Europe most of all, and the best way for development of such countries. One of the panel discussions is going to be dedicated to reforms and will be moderated by Mr. Jalilo. So can you specify what will be the agenda as far as the reforms are concerned? Because when we say reform in Ukrainian, that can mean anything at all. And can you specify what kind of tax reform you can expect, and will we have the newly appointed head of the fiscal service of Ukraine? Well, we are looking forward to it and help for it. So we'll have a representative of the committee, the Supreme Rada. This person is active, always active. We cooperated, and as lobbyists, by and large, we supported the rights and powers of taxpayers. We have an MP there who is part of the committee, Mr. Nazirov, who is active in advocating for taxpayers' interests. So there's no surety in it. We're not certain whether he will be able to attend. This will be his first working day on the 12th. About the agenda, the panel discussion, can you specify tax reforms will be dedicated to our discussion? The second panel, the Ministry of Finance, and Mr. Nasirov is much wanted because the Ministry of Finance is the pushing and pulling agency at this point, because concerning the expectations in the fiscal sphere, the Ministry of Finance specifically should be responsible for carrying out the reforms, and Madam Makeyeva is personally responsible for this fiscal center. We'll expect to hear her opinions on that. And on the first panel, we will more discuss the reforms ongoing, the reforms expected, the reforms and their impact, and that will be also the view of the international experts. Donetsk Oblast Administration, the Civic Council. Are you acquainted with the concept for fiscal reforms? Mr. Ken Dukhov? Would you invite him if so? Well, first of all, everybody is invited to interact. In Donetsk Oblast, despite all the regularities. We still have the branch of Taxpayers operational. Geographically, it's seated in Konstantinivka. And the reform that you mentioned, there are many concepts galore presently. Unfortunately, promises coming from the government to promulgate the concept paper on this reform by the end of April. It didn't happen clearly, so we are both in the same position, expectant. People say that the main curse in the East, Oriental curse is I wish you live in the time of change. But in the first interview of Mr. Nasirov, we could hear that that was planned for a span of 3 months. I would like to believe that. Still, I attended that round table of the committee, the parliamentary committee, back in April, and we heard about many negative opinions on the fiscal, on the financial sphere. For 3 months, we had the fiscal area headless, literally. There was no leader for the area appointed. We would like to expect some positive changes, but what will happen and whether it will be in favor of the taxpayers, I have my doubts about it, because the notorious laws of the 28th of December still effective, worsened the situation, made it much worse for business, and were opaque and cumbersome. So I wish that the discussion is constructive, and we can implement something for the benefit of Ukraine, for the sake of Ukraine. Happy Remembrance Day.